Frankenstein is coming back to life yet again, this time with Guillermo del Toro as his maker. The Oscar-winning director behind The Shape of Water and Pan's Labyrinth has been dreaming of making Frankenstein for more than 25 years now, and this November, that dream will finally step off the operating table. But I can't help but wonder, what is going to connect Del Toro's Frankenstein to the original 1931 Frankenstein film by James Whale? Even though these films are almost a century apart, I think they might be two sides of the same haunting, heartbreaking coin. So today, we're going to explore how Guillermo del Toro and James Whale, two deeply personal filmmakers, used Frankenstein to tell their stories. I'm Antonia Carlotta, and this is Universally Me, the channel for all things Universal and classic horror. My family started Universal Studios, and they made the Universal monster movies, including Frankenstein. And before we get started, I just want to take a quick poll here. If you are so excited for Del Toro's Frankenstein, leave a green heart in the comments, and leave a black heart if James Whale's is the only Frankenstein for you. To understand what Guillermo del Toro is doing in 2025, you have to start with James Whale in 1931. Whale had fought in World War I, he'd been a prisoner of war, and he came out of it with a fascination for human cruelty and human kindness. He was a theater man and a stylized filmmaker, and when he got the job to direct Frankenstein, he didn't just see it as a horror film. He saw it as something of a tragedy, and he saw the humanity in the monster right away. In Mary Shelley's novel, Frankenstein's creation is articulate, lonely, rejected, and desperate for connection. James Whale couldn't keep the creation's eloquent speeches, not with it being 1931, sound was still very new, and especially not with Boris Karloff being buried in layers of what is now Jack Pierce's iconic monster makeup. But James Whale did keep the emotion. Karloff's monster was childlike and curious and terrified. And it's that innocence, those soft eyes and that stitched together head that turn what could have just been a flat monster movie into a cultural touchstone. Whale and Karloff gave the monster soul. And I really don't think it's a coincidence that James Whale, a gay man in a time when something like that could ruin a career, that he chose to tell a story about being outcast and misunderstood and hunted. I can only imagine that he saw some of his own story in the monsters. Now fast forward to Guillermo del Toro, a monster kid from Mexico who has made a career out of turning monsters into metaphors. In The Shape of Water, which I absolutely love, he made this whole movie based on the question, what if the creature and the leading lady got together? And he made this beautiful film about love and loneliness. In Pan's Labyrinth, it's about trauma and imagination. And in Pinocchio, it's innocence and grief. And now, finally, more than 25 years later, he is ready to make Frankenstein. But he's also very scared, not because of the subject matter, but because of how important it is to him. And because he has been holding on to this dream so long, what dream does he have to look forward to after? And what if this dream doesn't live up to expectations? So what connects Del Toro and Whale? Well, they're both kind of outsiders in their world, and they both have such a strong sense of style in their films. But I think most importantly is that they both see something human in their monsters. Just like Whale, Del Toro sees the humanity in the creature. And just like Whale was likely inspired by some of his own experiences telling the Frankenstein story, so very much is Del Toro. He has talked about using this film to explore questions of being a father and being a son. And Del Toro has talked about his own complicated relationship with his father, how his father has always been somewhat of a mystery to him. And he has consistently emphasized that he is not viewing Frankenstein as a horror film, but as an exploration of emotions. There are, of course, some differences between Whale and Del Toro's Frankenstein, glaring ones even when just watching the trailer. James Whale's Frankenstein kind of deviated a bit from the Mary Shelley novel. It simplified the story, it focuses kind of just on creation and the aftermath, where the novel goes much deeper into the intellectual and emotional development of the monster and his relationship with his creator. I think Del Toro's Frankenstein is going to be more faithful to the book. When I see the ship, the snow, the ice, this all sounds like it's coming from the book. Although I do see a windmill here, which I don't think is from the book, but I think that this might be a nod to our 1931 Frankenstein. And it does make me excited that maybe we'll get some more of those. Jacob Elordi plays the creature. He is a beautiful man, and honestly, he has the perfect bone structure to give us a beautiful Boris Karloff creature. But I don't think we're getting a Boris Karloff creature. I think that we're going to get something closer to what Bernie Wrightson illustrated in his version of Frankenstein, which is, again, closer to what Mary Shelley described in her book. I think I'm right on this because there's a picture of Bernie Wrightson's wife, Liz, visiting Del Toro on set in Toronto. So, like, why else would she be there? But even without getting Boris Karloff's monster, I still think Jacob Elordi was a great casting choice. My big anchor point for him is Euphoria, which I thought he was great in. I know it's like a totally different context, but he could sometimes give these like vacant stares or this blend of like hurt and rage and dissociation that I could see translating really well in this film. And then we have Oscar Isaac, who, I mean, it's hard not to think right away to Ex Machina, which is sort of its own Frankenstein creator. But I just think he's such a versatile actor. So I'm really excited to see more of his doctor. You know, it was risky for Universal, for Junior Lemley and James Whale in 1931 to make Frankenstein when horror wasn't really an established genre yet. And I see Del Toro's Frankenstein today as also being risky. It kind of seems like studios and maybe audiences, they lean a little into some of the lighter IP. And with their horror, they want like jump scares and gore. But Del Toro is committed to emotion and depth. And I do see that as taking an artistic risk. It blows my mind to think of how long this movie has been in some sort of production. At one time, Doug Jones was attached to star. At one time, this was almost maybe a Universal monster movie. But then it got kind of put aside for the dark universe. Then The Mummy did so bad, and that killed all the monsters for a bit. Honestly, if The Invisible Man hadn't done so well, I'm not even convinced we would be making monster movies yet after The Mummy. But thank goodness we are. But anyway, now this movie is going to be on Netflix, and I have very conflicting feelings about that. One, I would have loved for this to be a Universal monster movie. Think of the tie-ins with the new Dark Universe, with the Epic Universe in Florida. It would also just feel like the monster is coming home where he belongs almost 100 years after the original. I also just don't know if Netflix is the right place for this movie. I mean, I think it deserves a big theatrical release. It's an event. It's Del Toro's vision. And I don't think that 99% of us are going to get the experience we deserve watching on our little TVs at home. There are a few ways I'm trying to comfort myself. One is just by saying that maybe because this isn't a Universal Frankenstein, that still leaves the door open for Universal to make their own Frankenstein. So that would be really fun. I would never say no to more Frankensteins. In fact, I volunteer to be Victoria Frankenstein, the tie-in from the Epic Universe who stars in the Universal Frankenstein. So call me. I also think that, you know, how I was talking about Guillermo del Toro and his artistic risk in making this film, that maybe it's not as risky if it's on Netflix because we don't have to worry about associated box office. And on the other side, Netflix is pretty good at campaigning for their films and their awards. You know, I see this Thanksgiving release. I think they want awards. So maybe we don't have the risk of the box office. We do have the reward of awards. And so the studios at least aren't going to miss out on their investment. It's really just the people missing out because we don't get to see it the way we should. But those are some things I'm thinking about. In the comments, I want to know what you guys think of the trailer. Are you guys excited? Do you hate remakes? What's up with you guys? Don't forget to hit the like, the subscribe, share this with all of your friends, especially friends who need to get into the original Frankenstein who only know the new ones. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.